Welcome to the Wealth Builders Podcast. I'm Billy Eppehart, and on this show, you're going to hear from industry leaders in business, real estate, and investing. Our Wealth Builder coaches and myself are excited to teach you how to make sense of making money for making a difference. Okay, let's get started.
Hello and welcome to this week's Wealth Builders Podcast. I'm Karen Conrad and I want to welcome you this week. We've got an amazing session, and I know I probably say that every week. I'm pretty sure I do, but one of my absolute favorite guests is joining us today, and that is Frank Pulley. Frank, can you say hi to everybody?
Hey, everybody. Welcome and thank you for joining us.
Frank is not only a real estate coach with us with Wealth Builders, he is also a business coach, and he's got a wealth of knowledge. He's just so full of information. He's helped us personally on numerous occasions. And today he's going to be talking on a subject that I think is going to be super helpful. It's called how to use credit, how to control credit, and how to have credit help you to make your business successful. You know, we talk to a lot of people, Frank, that they're very focused on getting out of debt, which is great. Dave Ramsey talks about that. But when we introduce Billy talking about the law of leverage, it kind of like makes them step back and say, wait a minute, is this okay that we use credit? We've been taught to get out of debt, but the law of leverage that Billy teaches is what really rocked Dave and my world to understand how wealth is built. And what you're going to be talking about today is a really important aspect of that. So I want to let all of you listening know that we have got our real estate workshop coming up here in just a couple weeks. It is April 28th to the 30th. It's in Denver, Colorado. We are sold out in person, but we still have live stream tickets available. And so if you want to learn more about that, go to wealthbuilders.org/events. And then you actually get to listen to it for 3 weeks following the event. So even if you have a busy weekend, you can't make every session, you can watch the replay of it. And I just guarantee you, it will really help you with real estate. Even if you're just trying to figure out if you want to go into real estate, it's over 20 hours of teaching. And Bill Bronchek calls it a real estate crash course. So I think that says a lot right there. So, all right, Frank, I am very excited to hear about this. And credit is one of those things that when used properly, just coming from banking 25 years, it can really help you. But if you don't use it properly, there's definitely some ways that it can get you into positions you don't want to be in. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Frank Pulley.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for being on the podcast today. You know, the average American doesn't really give a lot of thought to their credit. I mean, they do when they're maybe applying for a credit card or buying a car or, getting a mortgage on a house. But credit is so important in this everyday life. It can impact your ability to get a job, to even join a gym sometimes. Definitely impacts the amount of interest you're going to pay on a loan, and this, that, and the other thing. So let's talk a little bit about credit. And today we're going to talk a little bit about some credit basics, how you establish credit if you're new out there, credit scores, and, what do those mean? How do you maintain and improve your credit? And what if you have a credit challenge now and again? We're going to try and fit that in. So we're going to get going. So what is credit? Well, credit is basically trust given to another person for future payment of a loan, credit card balance, etc. So, and the creditor is the person or company to whom a debt is owed. Now, the big three are TransUnion, Equifax, and Experian. Those are the big three. And most lenders, credit card companies, etc., rely on at least one, if not all three of these. So it's important to kind of keep up and maintain good credit, because your credit score really will impact a lot of things in your life. So credit card companies, they kind of, or any creditor looks at your capacity, what What's your ability to pay back? Do you have any capital? Do you have, some sort of resources? Do you have collateral? Now, on credit cards, it's an unsecured loan, so they want to make sure you do have some assets, although they're not normally going to lien those. What kind of conditions are you going to borrow the money for? Is it just for some trip to Fiji, or you borrowing it for something that's a performing asset? And also your character, that's hard to judge, but over a period of time, credit card companies and mortgage companies can kind of establish kind of a credit, what your credit character is. Now, if you're just starting out getting credit, and I remember this way back when, couple of hints. First of all, don't change jobs or residences frequently. Start to get things like utilities in your name. Have a bank account. Have savings and assets, even if it's just a little bit. Now, a lot of times you can apply for a store credit card, one of the department stores, et cetera. Those are pretty easy to get and usually get a $300 to $500 credit limit, and make sure that you start paying the balance correctly and promptly. You can get a secured credit card where you go to the bank and say, okay, I'm going to put $500 in a savings account, and I'd like a secured credit card on that. Bank will give you a $500 credit limit. If you don't pay it, they take it out of your savings. After a while, 6 months to a year, a lot of times they'll turn that into a regular credit card. The thing is, if you're investing in real estate or going to any kind of business, you should be building and improving your credit while you're still working your regular full-time job. And by the way, this does not happen overnight, you guys. It takes a little bit of time. So what are some of the sources we have for credit? Well, we got banks. Credit unions, I think, are a great place to get loans, and they're starting to work with the real estate investors now. Some retail stores, as I mentioned. Finance companies, they're okay, but they're going to charge you a lot of interest. Savings and loans, and actually internet stores, like Amazon and Apple, all those guys, it's fairly easy to get a credit card with those guys, but you're going to have to start small as far as your limit. Now, let's talk a little bit about when you're applying for credit, what are some of the things that are important? What are the right questions to ask? Well, what's the annual fee? I mean, it's fairly unregulated now, so you can pay 30 or plus percent annual percentage rate on a credit card, and that's hard to pay off. So is there an annual fee? Some credit cards, in addition to hitting you with a big percentage rate annually, they also charge you a $100 fee. Find out when the payments are due and what is the minimum payment due each month. Is there a grace period? Are there other fees associated with credit, such as minimum finance charges? What if you take a cash advance, et cetera? What's the credit limit? What are the penalties for later missed payments? Important to know that, because in some situations you miss one payment and they can raise your interest rates. So these are just some things to ask, okay? Now, establishing good credit. Let's talk about real quick, if you're going into business, how about establishing a business line of credit? All right. Pretty much the same as we already talked about before. You don't want to change jobs frequently or whatever, but it's even more important because you want to have good personal credit, and most banks, et cetera, will lend you money, but they're going to want your business in an entity like an LLC or an S corporation, and you need to get an EIN, which is a employee identification number from the IRS. You can usually open a business credit card. Again, you got to kind of start small, but if you're working with vendors and suppliers, a lot of times they may extend credit, and if you can pay them a little early, that's even better. And if they report to the credit agencies, that's even better. And make sure you keep your information updated with all three credit bureaus. You can run a credit search on your account once a year for free. And it's not free credit. annualcreditscore.com. It's annualcreditscore.com. So just remember that, okay? For business loans, they want a FICO score, which we're going to talk about in a few minutes, of 660 or higher. They want your business to be pulling in at least $25,000 a year in gross revenue. And they want you to be in business for at least 6 months or more. They want some collateral to secure your line of credit. But if you're in real estate, gosh, if you buy right, you're going to have plenty of collateral. And of course, they're going to make sure that you're going to be able to pay that back. So let's talk about those credit scores that I talked about. A lot of people don't really pay attention to these, and it's important. I check my credit a couple times a month, and no, I don't always go out to the big three. I'll tell you a little secret in a minute. But a credit score is a number that helps a lender kind of predict if you're going to pay the loan back on time. A credit score is dynamic, depending on the amount of debt you have, your personal income, et cetera, your business income, it's going to change. And a credit score has broad use and impact. As I said, it can really, even getting homeowners insurance, they check your credit and you'll get a better rate if you have a good credit score. Now, the most popular one is called the FICO, which is a Fair Isaac credit score. And it's one of the most common credit scoring systems, and it varies between 350 and 850. But other credit scoring systems called Vantage Score were developed by the three credit bureaus from 501 to 990, and I'll tell you how they're used in a minute. FICO says a good credit score falls between 670 and 739, and Vantage Score says good scores fall between 661 and 780. They're just a little bit different, but let's just face it. If you got a really high credit score, then you're even better. If you can be above that 720, et cetera. Here's some facts. The average credit score in the U.S. is 716. The average credit score for Americans age 23 to 29 is 660. And I know some of you may be out there. As you get older, you typically have the highest credit score, like, seniors usually have it up in the 700s. Low-income families, though, have a median credit score of 658, which isn't too bad. And 23% of all Americans have a credit score above 800. And your payment history is 35% of that score, which we're going to talk about. What makes up your credit score? Well, if you get a lot of requests for new credit, which we can call maybe a hard hit. Basically, that's if you apply for a mortgage or for a car loan or something like that. If it's just a credit card company kind of checking you out and you're not requesting a credit card, those normally don't have any impact at all. Types of credit and use. If you got some of those high interest credit cards, or you're using somebody that's a little bit not one of the main credit lenders, it can impact your score a little bit. 10%. Payment history, we mentioned 35%. Current total debt is 30%, and I'll get back to that in a minute. And the length of credit history is 15%. You do not want more than 30% of your available credit on any given credit card. Now, on your mortgage, it might be a little bit different, but on credit cards, if I've got three $10,000 credit limit cards, I would want to have only $3,000 on each one of those rather than $9,000 on one of them, because it's going to keep my credit score higher. All right. So those are some things to think about when it comes to maintaining, and getting a good credit score. But some of the things you want to do is, it's pretty, what should I say? Good common sense, as my grandma would say. Pay your bills on time, get current and stay current. Don't open a lot of new accounts too rapidly. If you have mistakes, when they do happen, they're a lot easier to correct nowadays. Minimize those hard inquiries that I talked about, those hard hits to your credit. All right. I know one of our fellow coaches, Mike Davis, what he does, if he's looking for a car or whatever, he takes a copy of his recent credit score to his car salesman and says, look, if I have this credit score, what are you going to sell me the car for? I don't want you to run my credit yet. And so if they decide to make a deal, then he lets them go ahead and check his credit. But you could go all over town checking your credit, and you're going to have a bunch of hard hits, and that's going to be detrimental to your credit score. Don't close accounts unless necessary. There's some times when you might have to, but let's face it. If you've got them open, use them a little bit, use them wisely. Keep your balances spread out, as I mentioned. Pay off the debt. I put it twice because it's so important. Check your credit report at least quarterly. Now, that's annualcreditreport.com is the freebie. Anytime you get denied credit, by the way, you can check with any of your the big three, and they will give you. They have to give you the credit report for free. But one of the things I use is creditkarma.com, or you can use Credit Sesame. It's just an app, and it gives you an idea of what your credit score might be if they're free. And they'll send you notifications if your score goes up or down, or if there's some things that are detrimental or good for your credit. And I check those rather than having to reach out to the big three all the time. And one thing I want to say about credit is you want to make sure that you protect yourself from identity fraud. I have two-part authorization on pretty much all my accounts. I use a password manager, so I can't remember all these passwords, so they're fairly complex, but I can get them out of my password number. Be careful of your social security number. Identity fraud is going to a good place that does identity fraud, like LifeLock, Aura, Identity Guard, even Experian. The big three have credit protection programs, but I like somebody that goes through all three of the big three. They're going to monitor your social security number, your property titles. That's a big scam anymore, where people register their name on your title and try to sell your property. They do dark web monitoring, credit card monitoring, bank account monitoring, social media monitoring, and in your insurances. And they send out text, emails, or both. So I like LifeLock, but there's a lot of other ones out there. I'm not just, beholden to them. For my wife and I, it's about $40 a month, and I have my business pay it, and it's the best $40 I've ever spent.
Wow. I think, Frank, this is so helpful. And sometimes what people don't realize until they have a problem with their credit, how important it is to actually stay on top of it. So you've talked about the things, avoid a lot of credit pulls. You've given them information on where to go to check their credit. But if there is a lien out there or a collection item that you're not aware of, how can people find those before it ends up dinging their credit?
Well, if you go to the big three, normally that will be on there. If you own property, you can run a title search on your property, and it should show if there's a lien out there. So those are a couple of ways you can do it. But yeah, you've got to really look at those. If you get a full credit report, they can be lengthy. You got to really dig in and look at it. But I found all three of the credit reporting agencies are quite helpful anymore. It used to be a disaster dealing with them, but they're actually pretty good and pretty good in helping somebody out. The customer service is definitely improved. So
that's great. And what if somebody is in a situation where they have experienced identity theft? Maybe they didn't have the LifeLock like you talked about. What are steps that they can take to get that resolved and off their credit?
Well, the first thing I would do is I would call one of those companies and get identity theft, okay? Some of the things, like, for example, my local credit union for like $2 a quarter will provide me with identity theft insurance, as will my homeowner's insurance. It's not very much. Now, I've got to do a lot of the work, but they're going to protect me. They're going to, if I need an attorney or something like that, they're going to help me with that. So But I'm going to tell you, the best way is prevention, because I've been hacked. I got hacked about a year ago, and I did not have this. And I'm telling you, it was a long road to hoe. But once I got that, I got the identity theft insurance. I actually got it a little before that, and they were quite good. I had a couple of credit cards pop up. They emailed me, and somebody had put a credit card in my name. I talked to LifeLock. They assigned me a person. We called the credit card company, which at this time was Wells Fargo. That person from LifeLock stayed on the line with me until we talked to the Wells Fargo person and made sure that this wasn't going to, they're not going to give that person a credit card. And then they got off. And then they followed up with me afterwards. So I thought that was pretty good.
Wow, that's really good. Thank you, Frank.
Of course. Some of the smart uses of credit, don't use it for depreciated assets. Leverage it for performing assets. And if you do it right, it's going to build your credit score with proper use. Use it for some of the incentives, the warranties and benefits it has. Some cards will even categorize your transactions. But invest in yourself and your success. And I think that's something that we really promote in our real estate, Wealth Builders real estate and business coaching programs. Is investing in yourself and educating yourself is really, really important so that you know what you're doing. So if you have an error on your credit report, used to be you had to fax and mail back and forth and this, that, and the other thing, but you can actually do it online right now. For example, Experian, you can go to experian.com/disputes, and you can go ahead and kind of work it out there. And sometimes two of the credit reporting agencies will have it right, and one will have it wrong. So it's kind of crazy. The nice thing about any of the credit identity theft credit companies is if there's something that happens, they send you an email and a text, right away. But beware, if you got a foreclosure or bankruptcy or whatever, it can stay on your credit report for 7 to 10 years. Okay? All right, we're going to finish up here really quick. One of the things I want to talk about is, the cost of a low credit score. It's going to make credit higher cost to you. You might not be able to get it. Can affect car, home, and other insurance rates. And the list goes on. And just a quickie, over a $20,000 car payment paid over 5 years at 7%, your monthly payment would be $396, and total cost after it's all over $3,700. If you got 14%, which they call a subprime loan, you'll get it, but your payment's going to be $465 a month, and you're going to pay about $8,000, a $4,200 difference for not having good credit. So before I end on a spiritual note, Karen, what else do you think we should throw in here?
I think you've really covered things well, Frank, and just how to use credit. I think too, like when our children are younger, or teaching them, making sure we teach them about credit is very helpful. And even helping establish credit and overseeing it, managing it, it really helps our kids and our grandkids not get into a situation that will really cost them down the road.
For a long time, 10 years, I volunteered with Junior Achievement. And I just got really busy with, all the stuff with coaching and everything else, which I totally love. But, one of the nice things about Junior Achievement was you do teach kids about finances, how to write a check, about credit and stuff. They don't teach that in the schools.
They don't.
I just think it's amazing. I've had kids that have come to me that do not know how to address a letter. I just don't. I think that's a crying shame. So,
wow, that is something. I'll mention too, before I turn it back over to you for just some final comments, is that on our website, Billy has created something called the Debt Snowball Calculator. So if you have got some debt that you're trying to get paid down, check that out. Go to wealthbuilders.org, and it's on, I think it's under resources, and look at that. And you can enter information in there to help you know how to pay down your credit cards and pay down debt.
Cool. Well, we'll end on a spiritual note, and then I'm going to throw it right back to Karen to kind of finish us up. So this comes from Philippians 4:17. Not that I seek the gift itself, but I seek for the profit that increases your account. So thank you, guys. I appreciate you joining us today, and I'm going to throw it back over to Karen.
Awesome. Frank, this was so good. Thank you. And just a reminder to all of you listening, you will be able to hear more from Frank at our upcoming real estate workshop. Again, it's April 28th to the 30th. We've got live stream available. The in-person is sold out. To learn more, go to wealthbuilders.org/events. And just a reminder that Billy and Becky have got like over 1,000 blogs on the Wealth Builders website that gives you information on just this topic: credit, paying off debt, real estate business, you name it. So if you've not checked that out, I invite you to do so. Go to wealthbuilders.org, and there is a search button up on the right-hand side. You can enter in a topic, and it will pull all the blogs up, all the information on that topic. So it's just this amazing resource that I think we should mention more. And that's why I'm telling all of you about it. So thank you so much for joining us for the Wealth Builders Podcast each week. We really appreciate it. Please share this with your friends and family, anybody that you feel is wanting to learn more about building wealth God's way. Thank you so much. God bless you, and make it a great rest of the day.
Thanks for listening to the Wealth Builders Podcast. If you've enjoyed this podcast, please rate and review the show. If you want to learn more about who we are, visit our website at wealthbuilders.org and check us out on Facebook. We'll see you next time.